We've had a total of 4 new shovels added to the game in part 2 of the anniversary update. The first I'll be going through are the lovely Latrine Shovels, as I've been a massive fan of the OG Mark III for a long time. All of the new variants have a fancy folding mechanic, so we'll be seeing how potent that new special attack is, as well as going through what differentiates them from each other, the best ways to build them, and of course deciding which is the best variant of the 3. I just want to say thank you to everyone who subscribed from the last video, as I was almost at 6k, now I'm at 7, which has taken me off guard, but I'm greatly appreciative of that. We are on the way to 8k now, so drop a sub if you enjoy my content or this series, and thanks everyone for putting your suggestions on which weapons I should cover in the comments of that video as well. There are a lot of requests for tactical axes and shotguns, so those are indeed higher up on the priority list now. Of course, I may be tackling the weapons that we got new variants for first, as they're fresh off the press, but subscribe and stay tuned for more to come. Anyway, let's get into the Latrine Shovels. On the perfect 380 weapon, we're going to want to see damage, penetration, and first target maxed out. Damage is the modifier that determines our base damage, penetration determines how much damage we're going to deal against armored targets, and first target determines how much damage we'll deal against the first target struck in a combination. Crowd control and defenses are the dump stats here. Crowd control gives you more stagger and cleave distribution, whereas defenses gives you obviously a bit more defenses, lower sprint cost, push cost, and a little bit more dodge distance. But between the two, it doesn't really matter which one has the lowest value, as long as we have high damage penetration and first target roll. Now, into what differentiates the weapons. All 3 weapons have a mixture of sweeping and strike down attack patterns. The strike down attacks for all 3 do the most damage, however the sweeping attacks are, well, obviously able to hit a wider cone of enemies, and we'll touch on the damage profiles after going through what differentiates each weapon. Starting off with the OG Mark III, which has an uppercut special attack rather than a folding one, but we'll get into that in a moment. This variant has the most varied attack patterns of the 3, making it a sort of middle ground. The light attack pattern consists of 2 sweeping strikes that combo into a strike down, thereafter continuing a 1 sweep, 1 strike down combination. The heavy attack pattern also has a mixture, starting with a strike down, chaining into a sweeping strike and repeating. There is a good variety of effective combinations we can use and utilize due to its mixture of attacks. The first is our basic horde clearing combination, where we use 1 light attack, chaining into the sweeping heavy attack and repeating. The second is our single target focus combination, using our heavy strike down, chained with our uppercut special attack to reset the heavy combo back into the strike down. These 2 combinations give us the tools we need to deal with any enemy in the game. The Mark V and 19, on the other hand, have more narrow attack patterns. The Mark V focuses more on single target, strike down light attacks, with its combination of 1 sweeping attack, chaining into 3 strike down attacks and repeating, whereas its heavy attacks solely focus on area sweeping attacks, chaining 2 of them from left to right. This variant is able to use the same light 1, heavy 2 combo as the Mark III, which is more reliable than chaining heavy attacks over and over for horde clearing. The Mark 19, on the other hand, has heavy attacks that focus solely on single target damage, with 2 repeating strike down attacks. The light attack pattern for this variant has 2 sweeping attacks into 2 diagonal strikes. So the Mark V's light attacks are geared towards single targets, whereas the Mark 19s are geared towards crowds, and the Mark V's heavy attacks are geared towards crowds, whereas the Mark 19s are geared towards single targets. They essentially have opposing attack patterns, like yin and yang. The kicker is that both of these new variants come with a lovely new special attack, the folding pickaxe style strike. This allows you to flip the shovel for a single extremely high damage strike. This does the same damage for both variants, and with the right build has the potential to consistently one-shot crushers and every single other enemy in the game, except Monstrosities. The Mark III, on the other hand, has the uppercut, which can knock down every single enemy except crushers and maulers, making for one of the most potent CCing special attacks in the game, and as mentioned earlier, allows us to easily chain overhead heavy attacks for a great combo. This can also stun lock Monstrosities as well. The Mark III and V also share the same push attack, which is a sweeping strike from the left, whereas the Mark 19 has an overhead strike. With regards to the damage, they all share exactly the same damage profiles, with each respective attack type. Using a Crusher's weak spot to test, all heavy overhead strikes dealt approximately 500, sweeping heavy attacks dealt approximately 160, overhead light attacks 45, and sweeping light attacks 15. It's important to note that the Mark 19's 2 diagonal strikes are classed as Vanguard strikes, which is classed as a different attack that the other 2 variants do not have. These do minimal damage to armored targets, but have a better damage modifier against lighter targets than sweeping attacks. This means that deciding the best may come down to which variant has the most useful or potent combinations, which is a similar story to the Katakan swords. Before we get onto that, let's go through the best ways to build the shovels for the most damage output specifically, starting off with the blessing. There is one core blessings we need for all 3, as it will unlock great breakpoints, and that is Thrust. At tier 4, this blessing gives us up to 20% power, stacking in 3 6.6% increments. For the newer folding variants, we need this blessing in conjunction with the Crunch talent to guarantee us a Crusher one-shot with our folded special attack strike, which is a breakpoint way too powerful to avoid. On top of this, it gives the overhead heavy attacks of the Mark III and 19 a healthy boost, as well as the sweeping heavy attacks of the 3 and 5. There are a few secondary blessings you can choose next, depending on which variants you're using. For the Mark III and 5, I would go with Brutal Momentum, as these are both able to focus on horde clearing with their heavy attack combinations, and this will enable us to ignore enemy hit mass and strike through as many heretics as possible to deal damage to an extremely large row of enemies. It's an absolute no-brainer. For the Mark 19, you have other choices, as its light attacks focus on horde clearing. You may want to choose from either Skull Crusher for extra damage, or Confident Strike for extra survivability. I would lean towards Confident Strike, as you'll be getting less benefit from the heavy attack, toughness, regen talents in the tree, so this will pick up the slack extremely and keep you healthy in combat. Next, we have the perks. We need Carapace damage on all 3 shovels. This perk is essential to combine with Thrust and Crunch to enable us to one-shot Crushers with the Mark V and 19's holding attack, and it'll help us kill both Crushers and Maulers much faster with all 3 variants. The second perk is more lenient and down to personal choice. As the shovels have decent damage against maniacs, flak damage would be the most valuable, as it allows us to one-shot basic units with flak helmets with heavy sweeping strikes on the Mark III and 5, and boost our damage against scab gunners, shotgunners, ragers, bombers, and maulers bodies with all variants. But there isn't really a standout winner for the second perk, so feel free to go with whichever is most comfortable for you. Now that we've been through how to build them all, it's important to factor in how to construct your talent tree around these weapons. I've drafted 2 trees that focus purely on melee combat with the shovels. The first is specifically for the Mark III and 5, speccing down into heavy hitter, as we'll be using heavy attacks consistently for both hordes and priority targets with these variants. The second tree is specifically for the Mark 19 and specs down into feel no pain. We are saving points on the best defense, batter, and delight in destruction, as we won't be hitting multiple targets with heavy attacks with the Mark 19, so to compensate, we are picking up the extra survivability of the middle tree to keep us healthy in the brawl. When it comes down to it, it's extremely hard to pick a variant that shines as the best overall in this lineup. The OG Mark III has the most versatile combinations, and the uppercut punch is one of the most powerful staggers in the game, able to stun lock even monstrosities, whereas the other 2 variants are opposing twins with their combinations, but come with the extremely powerful folded pickaxe style strike that is able to kill every single unit in a single shot. If I'm being extremely harsh, I would have to place the Mark V and 19 at joint winners here above the Mark III, as they both have solutions for horde clearing and single targets. However, they both get the devastating folding strike, and being able to one-shot every single unit is simply more consistently valuable than being able to knock down every unit or stun lock a monstrosity. Picking between the 2 new variants is completely down to preference and your style of play. Both are extremely potent picks. The Mark III is still a great choice, however, but it is indeed outshone by the shiny new variants due to the new folding special attack. And that brings us to the end of this installation to the Which is Best series. Drop a subscribe if you have enjoyed this video, and check out my other Which is Best videos on my channel. I think I'll create a dedicated playlist and link it in the description. I will be prioritising the new variants for now, as they are, well, new and shiny, but do drop your opinions on the new weapon variants below, and we can have a chat about them. Drop your suggestions as well, and I'll see you in the next video.